On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. We do have quite a lot to talk about. No major announcements have been made thus far, but we do have a lot of talk going around with the Zelensky, Trump-Putin thing, right? The whole war in Ukraine, essentially. I do have the entire press conference. It's about 24 minutes of Trump and Zelensky. Zelensky actually dressed up for us. We'll get there in a second because Trump even trips out on it. Also, I think I'm probably going to play the Rubio. He had an interview on Sunday on, I want to say it was like NBC or one of those other media networks, CBS maybe. And he discussed a lot of what was happening, and I thought it was really good, one, in building the context of the bigger picture, that what they need to try to work through, not trying to get in front of it. And then you'll see with the questions that they asked Trump that they kept trying to kind of put him into a corner, tried to get him to acknowledge what he was going to do, trying to find places where he'd made his mind up, and it didn't go well. And Trump, they're playing it really close to the cards close to their chest, and we're definitely seeing a lot of comments running around about how Putin's won, and again, this is just, it's amazing how this is playing out, and all Trump's trying to do is end a war that he didn't start. So again, this is just a stupid mess. Got a lot to talk about. California doing some crazy stuff as well. So let's get rocking and rolling. And first and foremost, we'll start with this. Just Zelensky showing up, dressed nicely this time.
The best I had. Good to see it. Ready, peace? Yep.
President Trump, show your message to the people of Ukraine and the world leaders gathered here today.
We love them. We love them.
They actually have a great comment. The dude that commented on how he always wears sweat clothes, if you will, last time he was here, that dude gets called out by him. It's pretty cool. And I got to give points to Zelensky. He actually handled it, I think, rather well. We'll get there in a short moment. This is just straight up funny. Gotta love AI. AI definitely does some pretty funny stuff, pretty messed up stuff too, for that matter. Stephen Chung posted this, and yeah, ha ha ha, and he even translated that post to ha ha ha, which is even funnier. But Axios has broken the news that MSNBC is rebranded. They've dropped the NBC portion. They are now just MS Now, which is my source, news, opinion, world. They have rebranded. MSNBC is no more, which, yeah, they had to separate. That was destroying the NBC brand, is what it was doing. We've got some new GPS data that reveals exactly who showed up at the White House protest. We're finding a lot of consistent actors keep showing up. I think they had something like a pretty large percentage of them showed up, like 5 of the last few times, but 318 mobile devices present, law enforcement, media, and demonstrators. 92% of the devices had been in 5+ past D.C. protests. 67 devices tied to federal government employees with access to secured federal buildings. And 9 devices accessed the White House Northwest Gate multiple times in the last 30 days. So a lot of the people that are showing up in these protests aren't, well, there's not as many of them. They're typical people that keep showing up over and over. The left is losing their ability to make the noise that they once did. In fact, socialist parties, they had a pro-Hamas protest in San Antonio down on the waterfront. Very few people showed up. Very, very few people showed up. So again, people are not going for this woke stuff, especially in some of the places that they're desperately trying to push it. We are making progress, that's for sure. Billionaires for Socialism. This is kind of a funny thing. This is a very interesting article that points out the hypocrisy yet once again with the left. We've got Zoran Mamdani talking about how we shouldn't have billionaires because it is so much money in the moment of such inequality. How long is this? We'll see.
Of the neighborhood.
All right. You are a self-described democratic socialist. Do you think that billionaires have a right to exist?
I don't think that we should have billionaires because, frankly, it is so much money in a moment of such inequality. And ultimately, what we need more of is equality across our city and across our state and across our country. And I look forward to work with everyone, including billionaires, to make a city that is fairer for all of them.
Well, let me ask you.
Lazy people definitely, in my opinion, should not get as much as those who bust their asses. That's just bottom line. I know that's not equality in their minds because lazy people should be able to have all the goods without all the effort. Strange how that works. But one thing that is interesting right now is in the theater of modern politics. Denounce wealth while being powered by it. It's an interesting concept they're doing. And the actors know their audience. They've learned that if you slap grassroots on the packaging, voters won't check the label. But let's check it anyway. The money trail revealed in Sam Antar's breaking report is straightforward enough. Soros donates to the Open Society Institute, a $4.5 billion charity that enjoys generous tax deductions. OSI then transfers millions to other charities like Tides Foundation, which mysteriously claimed to run a $350 million operation with 0 employees. From there, the money converts into political cash. Tides passes funds to the Working Families Organization, a 501c4, which then wires millions to PACs that bankroll candidates like Mamdani. So he hates the rich, yet it is the rich that are a huge part of why he seems to be so successful. I don't know if his success is legitimate. I actually think a lot of it's manufactured in the media and everything else. I think they're really trying to make him seem like he's the only choice. I just don't think, we'll find out. I don't think New York's that stupid. I just don't. I really don't. I think Californians are waking up from our stupidity as well. California's streamlined permitting process for green energy is stuck. Literally, these guys are just failing at everything they do. Politico is reporting that California's new process under a 2022 law, which was meant to limit permitting to 270 days only, which is still forever, has been completely ineffective, as local opposition is still able to delay green projects for many years. In fact, we've got this one example. It's a wind power farm in the mountains of far northern California. Was the first through the door of this new permit streamlining that they are doing, this new program. Once a permit application was complete, the California Energy Commission would make its final ruling on the project within 270 days. It's been more than 650 days since Fountain Wind completed its application, but the agency still hasn't made a final ruling after fierce local opposition successfully derailed the permit review. So again, Gavin Newsom's looking like a fool. All the people in California's government are looking like fools. You guys can't do anything properly. Everything that you try, everything you touch, you ruin, you destroy. You make it take longer than it needs to. It's a mess. Angry Gavin Newsom files FOIA request on Border Patrol raid outside his rally to eliminate Republican seats. He wants to find out who all was involved. Very curious to see what all information he gets. I don't think he's going to get names or anything like that of National Guard. And again, it's so funny how like a lot of FOIA requests go like Republicans trying to get information and they'll leave out all sorts of really important key information and so, we can't trust you with it. You might leak it. Again, it'll be very interesting to see how this in fact does play out. But we'll see. We'll see. It's a mess in California. And this is, of course, part of Gavin Newsom's failure and needed failure before he tries to run down this whole path of being president, which God help us all if that's the case. Los Angeles may face ballot measure that could crimp its plans for hosting the 2028 Olympics. Again, another self-inflicted wound. They're preparing to host the 2028 Olympics here in Los Angeles, facing a proposed ballot measure that would force a citywide vote to approve building plans for the games. A lot of people are not real thrilled about this. They also raised the minimum wage, so you've got this entire group of hotels, or at least entertainment industry, the tourist industry, have filed a lawsuit against this union group that is getting these higher wages. We've got all these different little mini construction projects that have to be voted on locally, is one of the points of this article, which some of those may not pass through the votes. Again, assuming we get an accurate vote, which there's some news coming on that. So again, we've got this funny situation where LA, because of their own stupidity, there's a strong chance they're not actually going to be able to approve a lot of the things that are supposed to happen within the city for the Olympics. And in fact, some of these things might need to happen outside of the city because of these permitting problems, because they can't get these things passed through, because they won't likely even be able to get it on a ballot until 2026 when they're talking about the Olympics being in 2028. That's, for people that build, that's not giving people a lot of time, is it? So yet, once again, California continues to fail. We're awesome like that. I'm pretty sure this wasn't approved by the governor, or Caltrans for that matter, but watch for potholes, sinkholes, assholes. And there's a picture of Gavin Newsom with the Chinese flag, or the Chinese Communist Party's emblem, sitting right behind his head. Can't make this stuff up. It makes it up for you. It's just fun that way. Donald Trump put this out. D.C. gave fake crime numbers in order to create a false illusion of safety. This is a very bad and dangerous thing to do, and they are under serious investigation for so doing. Until 4 days ago, Washington, D.C. was the most unsafe city in the United States and perhaps the world. Now, in just a short period of time, it is perhaps the safest and getting better every single hour. People are flocking to D.C. again, and soon the beautification will begin. So Trump is doing a lot about trying to turn things around. Good old Congress or Senator John Kennedy, love this dude. And I didn't realize he used to be Democrat. It didn't surprise me, I guess, when I read it, but I just didn't realize that he used to be. He was a Democrat for his first 2 terms and then became a Republican and has since stayed. But he is talking about how the deep state / communist faction of the Democrat Party is essentially afraid of its crazy side, right? The crazy side that's all the communist. And so all the regular, normal sort of center-left-ish people are the ones that are afraid to say anything because they're afraid to look bad in front of this crazy group of radical lefties that are within their own party. And because of it, they're likely going to have some problems. So he says a lot of stuff that's pretty funny. He goes, the mainstream wing of the party is scared to death of the loon wing. They won't speak up. They don't stand for anything anymore. All they stand for is whatever is against whatever President Trump stands for. That's why we find ourselves in the extraordinary position of mainstream Democrats have now come out firmly and passionately in favor of crime in Washington, D.C. Why? Because Trump is trying to do something about it. Says there is a split in the Democratic Party. Unless you have the IQ of a meat thermometer, you can see that. On the one hand, you have the mainstream wing of the party. On the other hand, you have what I call the loon wing. They're fighting like cats in a bag, but the loon wing is winning. Nobody pays attention to what Obama, Clinton, or Pelosi, or Schumer, or Jeffries says anymore. The leaders are Mr. Mamdani, Ocasio-Cortez, and Bernie Sanders. And yes, they're socialists. They're neo-socialists. They want government to control your life and tell you how to live it. It's hard to believe that anyone can fit that much stupid in their head, but they can. The defining characteristic of this group is contempt. To be a member of their club, you have to have contempt for America. Not gratitude, as you should, but contempt. You have to believe that America is wicked when it was founded, and that it is more wicked today. You have to believe that America is racist, sexist, and unjust. That's why they all hate George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Thomas Jefferson, and Dr. Seuss, and Mr. Potato Head. You also have to believe, to be a member of their club, that America is irredeemable. We can't fix it. We've got to burn it down. And finally, to fit it, you've got to be unhappy. They're just not happy people. That's what I've found to be too. Generally angry, seldom happy. You know, they'll claim they're happy to your face, and you're like, your actions never suggest that. Pam Bondi had an update for D.C. Washington, D.C. is getting safer every night thanks to our law enforcement partners. Just this weekend, 137 arrests were made, and 21 illegal firearms were seized. In total, there have been nearly 400 arrests, and we are not slowing down. We are committed to making D.C. safe again. Now, White House, they've talked about the D.C. man on a moped. He attacked officers and caused a concussion in the process. Now, this is something that was misreported. They tried to make it sound like the cops just went after this dude just willy-nilly. But this dude had all sorts of runnings-ins. But yesterday morning, just off the 14th Street Northwest, a group of masked law enforcement officers arrested a moped driver. Onlookers stood near a coffee shop and the entrance to a luxury condo building, recording the altercation on their phones. WAPO reporter Dan Rosenweig-Ziff was among them. Shouts from the crowd that the officers, whose vests simply read police, identify the agency with which they were affiliated, were dismissed. One of them said, basically, do I have to answer you? But this individual, let's see, his misreported story about the officers arresting a man operating his moped in D.C. alleged that he had suspected gang affiliations and violently resisted arrest. So, yeah, he is. He claimed the crackdown has led to an innocent man being arrested, is what they're trying to call it. Needless to say, this dude's not necessarily innocent. We'll let the courts figure that out, but here is him being arrested. In the process of pulling him down, the officer hit her head. I don't know if I'm going to play all 2.5 minutes, but she hurt herself. I think it's a she.
Hey, yo, stop! Stop! Get out of this city! Stop! Get out of our city! Get out of our city! Choke yourself out!
Anyway, they just, it's more of this. They eventually get him in the car. People try to find out, hey, what's your names? What's that? And you're like, don't get near me. This guy especially, they're trying to put someone in this car. This individual filming runs over there, and the dude's like, don't get near me. Go, you can film from wherever you, over there on the sidewalk, but you get that, and you actually used the F word. So they are cleaning up the streets. They are not allowing. In fact, there was a moped individual that was, happened in New York, actually. So that was kind of messed up, too. That individual, I think, caused a concussion of a cop as well. So, again, a lot of crazy stuff's going on. I want to remind you guys of Proud Patriots. I'm going to put the link in the description box. Unfortunately, it's on the screen. If you feel like trying to type all that in, that's fantastic. Unfortunately, that's the only way I can get any credit for it. I would like that if that's possible. But proudpatriots.us/78DTMM /6H52ND. It's just easier to hit the link. But man, there's some cool stuff here. They've got the $2 bills. These are actually legitimate $2 bills, by the way. You could spend them. They're not worth it. You're spending $30 to buy it. So, but they are legitimate $2 bills. They've got one with Trump's picture. They've got all sorts of crazy stuff as far as bills go. They've got some cool coinage. Right? $2 bill, they've got all sorts of people. I don't know why they can put anybody on the $2 bill, and that's technically legal. They got the stealth version, this B-2 stealth bomber. It's genuine, legal tender. Again, it's $30. Probably don't want to spend it as a $2 bill unless you're just total baller. That's totally cool if you are, too. But, yeah, they got some really, really neat stuff. Donald Trump pens, all sorts of cool stuff. They got the Trump bear is awesome. I got the Trump bear. Love that thing. The bullet, the glass that stopped the bullet. Donald Trump's bulletproof Trump inauguration whiskey glass. There's another genuine legal tender bills with the eagle on there, the black eagle. Again, I don't know how they do this, but somehow that's okay. Oh, it's a silver certificate even. Are you serious? It's worth, what, $1 of silver? How does that work? That's a pretty sweet deal. That's a pretty sweet deal. Silver certificate even. Look at that. It's probably worth $1. Certainly not 1 ounce. Whatever the case. It's awesome stuff. They've just got some really, really cool Patriot type stuff. Go to proudpatriots.us. Well, hit the link if you could. Go to the description box in whatever place that you're watching this. And certainly, while you're there, hit the thumbs up if you could, please. Make sure you're subscribed. And then in the top, it's going to be in the very top of the description box. In whatever platform you're watching in, it'll be the first line in there for you. But hit that, click on it, check it out. They got some really, really cool stuff, a lot of fun stuff. And you can click into these individual groups, and they've just got a whole bunch of cards or money, like the money thing. If we go into the money, they've got a bunch of these different kinds in here. Got some really, really, really neat stuff, coins and everything. So go check it out, Proud Patriots. A lot of good, fun stuff there. And certainly helping the channel out. I appreciate that tremendously. All said, let's get into the next little bit of stuff here. Newsmax is going to pay Dominion Voting System $67 million to settle the defamation lawsuit brought against the right-leaning news outlet over its push of claims that the 2020 presidential election was stolen. It seems that's the word they had the hardest time with. Mike Lindell obviously going through his fair share of pain on this particular front as well. It is interesting how that is playing out. Former U.S. Attorney General William Barr has arrived to testify before the House Oversight Committee in its review of the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case. I'm not expecting anything to come from Bill Barr's discussions, but it is happening. So hopefully something cool comes out. We'll find out. Obama judge, some of the crap they're doing here. We got one judge blocking Trump's bid to end child detention policy, seen as fueling illegal immigration. This has to do with how long they're allowed to keep children in custody, is in ICE detention, if you will. So we've got a federal judge that's once again trying to stop Trump's abilities. And what happens with these children is if they don't have family here, then they get handed off to the agencies that have been trafficking, let's just say. So this is a judge, Judge Dolly Gee, Obama appointee of the Central District of California, said in August 15th order that the administration has not shown grounds to terminate the Flores settlement agreement. Not sure why she's able to make that assessment. This will obviously be appealed. Most likely she will be shot down as not able to stop what Trump is doing, until they can get it further into the courts, obviously. But it's just stupid stuff. Federal judge is going to hear a case Monday on Alligator Alcatraz detainees, alleging their civil rights have been violated. Again, we've got criminals telling us they're not treating us nice enough. The food's horrible. Yeah, it's jail, dude. That's one thing I've never heard positive, except for the Jell-O, but I've never heard anything said positive about the food in jail. Especially prison, ever. In fact, prison's really bad. Like I hear it's nasty. I hear you get used to eating some stuff that you would not normally consider eating. Supreme Court's going to consider oil companies' petition in a climate case. We've got, I think, Hawaii and Boulder, Colorado are both trying to sue oil companies to blame them for the climate crisis that exists in the world or the extreme weather they've been having. Similar to how they were trying to sue gun manufacturers for making the weapons that people were using to kill people. I can't imagine this is going to stand a chance. You should not really, unless you can prove absolute, like the Exxon Valdez oil spill, right? Like that was totally the oil company's fault, 100%, right? 100% their fault. The leak that happened out in the Gulf, 100% their fault. Weather? That's a big stretch. There's a lot of factors that come into play on weather, aren't there? So how do you decide how much one company should pay? Again, using their thinking. I don't agree with them, but using the thinking of all the crazy radicals out there. How do you decide which company is more guilty? How do you decide which companies to ignore? I mean, you got China that's belching out coal-powered stuff like by the week, right? And they're pumping out all sorts of nasty stuff in the air. How do we not go after them? How do we not sue China? How do we not start taking over their land that they have here because they owe us money for these climate atrocities? Again, it's just funny how they're going after the companies that are trying to make pain. They're trying to make pain for the gun companies, trying to make pain for the oil companies, trying to make pain for anything that is not quote-unquote green in their minds. So, again, hopefully the Supreme Court, I'm pretty sure the Supreme Court's going to be like they were with the gun case law. And there was even Mexico was trying to sue the gun manufacturers as well. That didn't go over. So they're trying all this stuff. It's not going over. Well, Trump had a big one that I'm sure this is going to get fought in court. I'm assuming the timing of this is going to be key, but I also assume some of the people he needs to get into office are probably key to this as well. It may be a long post, but it's pretty freaking awesome. So Donald Trump truthed out, I am going to lead a movement to get rid of mail-in ballots and also, while we're at it, highly inaccurate, very expensive, and seriously controversial voting machines, which cost 10 times more than accurate and sophisticated watermark paper, which is faster and leaves no doubt at the end of the evening as to who won and who lost the election. We are now the only country in the world that uses mail-in voting. All others gave it up because of massive voter fraud encountered. We will begin this effort, which will be strongly opposed by the Democrats because they cheat at levels never seen before, by signing an executive order to help bring honesty to the 2026 midterm elections. Remember, the states are merely an agent for the federal government in counting and tabulating the votes. They must do what the federal government, as represented by the President of the United States, tells them for the good of our country to do. And what they say, they can't fight it, right? With their horrible radical left policies like open borders, men playing in women's sports, transgender and woke for everyone, and so much more. Democrats are virtually unelectable without using this completely disproven mail-in scam. Elections can never be honest with mail-in ballots voting, and everybody, in particular the Democrats, know this. I and the Republican Party will fight like hell to bring honesty and integrity back to our elections. The mail-in ballot hoax using voting machines that are a complete and total disaster must end now. Remember, without fair and honest elections and strong and powerful borders, you don't have even a semblance of a country. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America. He does the capital letters there, but up here, he does camel case. It's very interesting that he does that. I think those things are significant. So he's going to get rid of that stuff. Dems are going to fight like hell. You guys know that. Speaker Johnson vows to fight California Democrats' illegal power grab. Democrats across the nation have played politics with redistricting for decades, and this is just the latest example. Republicans who are following state and federal laws will not be lectured by people who abused the system, Johnson wrote in a next statement. Says, I have instructed the NRCC to use every measure and resource possible to fight the California Democrats' illegal power grab. I will continue to lead efforts to defend our House Republican incumbents and grow our majority so that we can continue to deliver on our common sense America First agenda. I still like Johnson. I know there's people that have already kicked him to the curb, but I love the dude. Texas House Democrats finally returned Monday. Apparently the special session has ended. Doesn't mean that the governor can't fire up another one, but they've all come back. I don't believe they have not passed the bill in the House yet. Passed the Senate. We'll see again what happens, whether or not Abbott does, in fact, well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. You can open up a new session very easily. Nothing special happens there. If he does and the Dems leave again, I don't know what happens. They might very well do that. Now, here's the funny thing. We still haven't voted this in, but we've got all sorts of other places that are desperately trying to do the same thing, right? So, again, I always find it humorous how the hypocrisy that exists within the left is just, it's excruciating sometimes. It's craziness. So, again, we'll get there. Hopefully any day Abbott will have something to say in regards to what's going on next. Trump's IRS is seeking to block whistleblower trial that alleges Clinton Foundation tax irregularities. This is kind of a weird case, and it's being spun in a very weird way as well. I'll try to simplify it best I can. We've got these two whistleblowers, and they saw that the Clinton Foundation was doing some stuff that wasn't appropriate when it came to their 501c and all that kind of stuff, right? They definitely are making profit in certain places with their nonprofit organization. Now, what they talk about is how this was never actually investigated by the IRS. The IRS never dug into this. Now, also keep in mind that we've got Bessent, who is temporarily in charge of the IRS. This is sort of happening while nobody's at the helm. Now, my guess is Bessent's going to get directly involved with this, or maybe already has, and this is why they're like, look, here's the thing. We don't necessarily want this to go to the court just yet. So the Internal Revenue Service under Trump filed a motion last week in the case brought by retired federal agent John Moynihan and private fraud expert Larry Doyle, seeking to dismiss the case. Judge Alina I. Marshall set a deadline of September 15th for the petitioners to respond to that motion. The IRS also filed leave for an extension of time to file the administrative records with the courts. The agency argued that, as a matter of administrative and procedural law, the judge should not let the case proceed to trial because after an initial review, the IRS declined to look into the whistleblower's complaint, and therefore the plaintiffs don't have standing to sue. Like, they didn't even look into it. They didn't know. They're kind of ignorant, so they can't really sue them for anything yet, it seems. They continue, in this case, the whistleblower's office denied petitioners' claims because the petitioners' claims were never considered in an IRS action. Here, the whistleblower's office forwarded petitioners' claims to a classifier. The IRS motion to dismiss argued last week. Following the classifier's preliminary review, the classifier declined to forward petitioners' claim to exam and recommended that it be forwarded to this Criminal Investigative Division. The IRS did not proceed with any potential action when it investigated petitioner's claims. So I'm thinking some of this has to do with who's in charge. Maybe Bessent kind of changes this. This is maybe them trying to get something to go away before the right people can get into office. I don't know. Something about this just feels weird. I don't fully understand the legalities of all of it. But I have a feeling a little more information is going to be coming forward on this. We'll see what we get when we get it. Republican civil war is erupting over the earmarks in funding bills. So we've got a lot of earmark stuffs going on right now. And the earmarks are kind of similar to the infamous pork spending that they used to talk about. And so that's what they're going back to, these earmarks, where they're trying to get all sorts of money. And this is Republicans doing this. And Republicans right now are taking a lot of crap, taking it on the chin, because, frankly, everyone thinks that they just created a giant debt, $3.4 trillion over the next decade because of Trump's big, beautiful bill. Now, again, I think that leaves out a lot of factors, a lot of things that are being improved, a lot of money that's going to be coming in via tariffs as well as infrastructure. So, again, there's a lot of stuff I don't think they fairly equate into that. All said, the one big, beautiful bill was big and giant and expensive. And so we'll see what's happening, but hopefully we can get the good guys in Congress, how very few of them there are, to help corral the bad guys, because the bad guys are going to screw everything up if we let them. So we'll see, again, what's going on. Senator Mike Lee, he's a leading conservative, argued earmarks are still prohibited by Senate Republican conference rules, even though some members of the conference choose not to follow them. He says it's still prohibited by conference policy, and I think we need to stick to that. So he's trying to get him to hold the rules. Senate Republicans voted for a permanent ban on earmarks in May of 2019 when the proposal passed by a 28-12 vote after a heated debate behind closed doors. So, again, trying to keep them honest. The Senate is, I think, one of the worst, hands down for that matter. Dispute over EU censorship law is delaying this trade deal with the EU. So right now the EU is paying much, much higher tariffs. It's killing Germany because their car manufacturing is killing them. England's doing all right because they're not part of the EU, at least yet. But I don't think Keir Starmer's going to get his opportunity to get him back in there because they are losing that battle as well. But they're not getting the better tariffs, and this really has to do with the censorship laws that they're trying to do and the way they're trying to attack Twitter and companies like that. So, or X, whatever. So this is, I don't know, it's interesting. We'll see, again, how this continues. Von der Leyen's not exactly doing anything to make this better. Again, this is just crushing Germany right now, crushing Germany. It's going to cost them, between the two car industries, they talked about BMW and I want to say Volkswagen. They were talking like, I don't know, 2.5 billion roughly in lost sales because of that. That's a pretty big chunk of money that those car companies are going to be trying to deal with. So huge, right? So we'll keep Trump's fighting for us. Trump vows Social Security will thrive for another 90 years. The actuaries currently are stating that it's going to run out in about 7-8 years. Trump getting a lot of the people off there that were on there. That was gobs of money that is no longer being paid out to who knows who, if anyone. But we are still, it's still a long way to go. Now, the one thing that bothered me is, this is the standard thinking, and I think it's hilarious, but according to analysis, the Congressional Research Service, they said the federal government would have three options. I disagree, but we're going to go with the three options because, again, when the only tool you have is a hammer, then everything's a nail. Three options: increase taxes, decrease benefits, or a combination of the two. How about tariffs help pay for some of that? Well, there's a thought. That's not one of those stupid three choices. Analysis or analysts. Shit. It's ridiculous. All eyes on Zelensky at the White House, and Powell is at Jackson Hole. Powell is having a big meeting today, and they're calling it the Economic Outlook and Framework Review. This is what it's titled. I guess that's what it usually has to do with. Whether or not he talks about lowering rates, raising rates, whatever, lowering is what he's supposed to do. And many are saying September. We'll see. we'll see what happens. But yeah, there's supposed to be a big talk. Obviously, the stock market's curious about that. They were curious about the peace agreements. So the stock market's been, well, it was sort of flat. I don't care about futures anymore. That's down a teeny bit. I mean, not, the worst is 0.14%, so nothing. Gold, yeah, see, it's fixing itself right now. Gold's down a little bit, still above the 33.50 mark. I think silver was up a teeny bit. Is that still holding or not? Yeah, it's up a teeny bit, still at 38.13. Not bad, 38.14. So, again, things are improving. William Makis, MD, put this out. And this is fantastic. He's referring to a cancer paper that they've written. He says, our febendazole in cancer paper has been published. Largest cancer patient publication since the 2021 Stanford paper. 3 stage 4 cancer patients take fenbendazole and are now in remission. No chemo. This is making news around the world. He says, our fenbendazole paper passed peer review and is now published. 3 stage 4 cancers, we said all that. Case 1, 83-year-old woman with stage 4 breast cancer, reoccurrence-free for 3 years now. Case 2, 75-year-old man with stage 4 prostate cancer, reoccurrence-free for 2 years now. Case 3, 63-year-old man with stage 4 melanoma, reoccurrence-free for 11 months now. All 3 patients tolerated febendazole without any reported adverse effects, and remission was sustained during follow-up periods ranging from 11 months to nearly 3 years. Febendazole demonstrates potentially as a novel, promising therapeutic option for repurposing in oncology. Fenbendazole has been recently taken away as an option from terminally ill cancer patients by Alberta Premier, A.B. Daniel Smith, who is criminalizing ivermectin and fenbendazole through the courts in Alberta. While cancer patients are being murdered by their government in Alberta, murder's a strong word, but his words, while cancer patients are dying because of lack of options in the governments, by the governments of Alberta, Canada, the rest of the world's cancer patients are benefiting. Lives are being saved. And this is only the beginning. More papers are already working their way through the system. Article link in the last photo to avoid shadow ban. Just retype the URL in the last photo at the top of your browser, yada, yada. So again, this is a pretty good little study that's out. So very good stuff. We're making progress as far as there are other ways to go about healing ourselves, and we need to keep these things in mind. The Wellness Company is a great one. twc.health/OTF. That's twc.health/OTF. The ivermectin mebendazole. So fenbendazole is one that's not really for humans so much yet. They have it for animals, but people are taking that version. It's much like ivermectin. Horse paste still works in humans too. This is through a doctor. This is through a prescription, so much better way to go about it. Mebendazole is the same family as fenbendazole, doing the same kind of thing. So we're noticing, 1, parasite cleanse. 2, there's a lot of correlations potentially between parasites and cancers. There's a lot of things to consider, but this has been an amazing experience for me. I'm noticing a lot of positives in my body and my health. Again, I'm going through my little extra cleanse right now with no drinking and all that kind of stuff, and also still doing, of course, my parasitic cleanse. This stuff's, again, I love it. I'm noticing big differences. I'm noticing a lot of things are happening with my body and stuff. It's a trip. So, of course, you want to go to twc.health/OTF. You want to go to bestsellers, check out the ivermectin mebendazole. They've also got another one that's really popular right now, the methylene blue. They've got this thing called Recharge. If you go to shop and you go down under the Revive section, they've got a thing called Recharge that has methylene blue. It's also got a couple other ingredients that really help with keeping your mind sharp. If you've got weight issues, they've got a whole bunch of different stuff for weight control. Also, the Ultimate Spike Detox. This thing is the bomb when it comes to dealing with the spike protein. It literally is designed to go after the actual spike protein, that little thing that was actually manufactured in the lab. That part is what it goes, literally chases down that. This is one of the best ways to get that spike out of your system. And the spike is what seems to be causing a lot of the problems with the mRNA. When they get rid of the spike, a lot of the problems seem to go away. And those numbers, I forget what they're called, but the numbers are that you test to show how much of this COVID you got in your system, they're going way down after people are taking the Ultimate Spike Detox. So that's a huge one if you've maybe rolled your sleeve up. All said, they've got a lot of really, really awesome products that are by goal, anti-aging, appetite control, cleanse, detox, hair loss, the whole 9 yards, heart health, immune support, Spike collection, new products, and of course, like I've said, you don't want to miss out on the ivermectin bebendazole. This is such a powerful product, and loving what it's doing for me. Go to twc.health/OTF. That's twc.health/OTF. Those healthy choices, healthy living, and life is good. So Putin walked away satisfied from the Alaska deal. No matter what, no matter how this worked, it just played out really well. One of the key things that came from this that I didn't fully understand that I thought was interesting is the face-to-face meeting with Putin provided this opportunity for Russia to have a foreign, what do they call it? Foreign diplomacy, which is super important to them. Like they were talking about in this article, for Trump, our at-home diplomacy is almost more important, like how he looks here versus how he looks abroad. Trump doesn't give a crap about how he looks abroad. He cares how he looks here. Putin's the opposite. Putin doesn't care how he looks at home. He looks great at home. He doesn't care. That's not his problem. It's how he looks abroad because of how they've been separated, isolated, and everything else. So this gave them that ability to meet in such a way that gave Trump a win and gave Putin a win at the same time. Now, they were comparing Putin versus Gorbachev in Trump's different battle, but it said it's tempting to compare Trump to Mikhail Gorbachev, who sought to win approval abroad through concessions. But the comparison fails. Gorbachev compromised when he didn't need to, given foreign policy's secondary role for a Soviet leader. Trump, by contrast, is locked in a domestic fight, and Alaska was part of it. America's strong economic base gives him confidence that international losses can later be reversed. Russia, with a less flexible economy, weighs foreign policy gains and setbacks much more heavily. Making business deals with the United States would be extraordinarily helpful for Russia. It would allow them to get out from a lot of these sanctions. Getting out of this war would be extremely beneficial, but again, they've got to make sure they keep everybody happy, if you will. So silence or secrecy, what Putin and Trump didn't say in Alaska. This is the thing that's kind of funny. So the point they make, and I like it, because it's either nothing happened and they just bailed, and we've seen a whole slew of all the people on the left are this is horrible, this is the worst thing ever. I'm not going to play it. It was like 5 minutes of just crap. But what likely is the case is this point. The near total absence of detail can be read two ways. Perhaps nothing was really agreed. The agenda, slimmed down from the start, might suggest that. Or, just as plausibly, the Kremlin and White House have reached an understanding but are keeping it tightly under wraps to prevent third parties from sabotaging the process. That second part almost assuredly is it. And I'm going to play basically 35 minutes, two things, and I'll interrupt in the middle of them, but they show how desperate the media is to try to get Rubio and Trump to admit to what they're going to do, to admit to the bargaining chips that they're holding, so they can sabotage it. Nobody's admitted at all. So here's Rubio. I think this is really good. I wish I could play this faster, but I can't. But again, I've got two good pieces of video that I think are huge when it comes to what's happening in the world right now, and I think this is definitely worth the time. That was on Meet the Press. Check it out.
Joining me now is Secretary of State and National Security Advisor Marco Rubio. Secretary Rubio, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So heading into the meeting with President Putin on Friday, President Trump said he wanted a ceasefire agreement. Now he is saying he wants a broader peace deal. We know that Ukraine, we know that European allies want a ceasefire first. Is a ceasefire now off the table, Mr. Secretary?
No, it's not off the table. I think what the president said, in fact, you just read it on the air a few moments ago, it was agreed to by all that the best way to end this conflict is through a full peace deal. There's no doubt about that. I mean, who would be against the fact if tomorrow we came to you and said we have a full peace deal and it's done? I think that's the best way to end the war. Now, whether there needs to be a ceasefire on the way there, well, we've advocated for that. Unfortunately, the Russians, as of now, have not agreed to that. But the ideal here, what we're aiming for here is not a ceasefire. What we ultimately are aiming for is an end to this war.
Well, I want to drill down on that exactly and what happened, because as you just heard before the meeting with President Putin, President Trump warned there would be, quote, very severe consequences for Russia if it didn't stop the war. Here's a little bit more of what he said on the plane ride over. Take a look.
I want to see a ceasefire rapidly. I don't know if it's going to be today, but I'm not going to be happy if it's not today.
So what exactly changed? Is it that Putin would not agree to a ceasefire?
Well, first of all, the Russians are already facing very severe consequences. There's not a single sanction that's been lifted. And not one. I mean, they're facing all the same sanctions that have been in place today. All the American support continues for Ukraine. And ultimately, look, if we're not going to be able to reach an agreement here at any point, then there are going to be consequences. Not only the consequences of the war continuing, but the consequences of all those sanctions continuing and potentially new sanctions on top of it as well. But what we're trying to do right now is end the war. And in order to end the war, you've got to give every opportunity that exists. You have to be open to any opportunity that exists to bring it about. And here's the thing to remind everybody. And when the president says this is not our war, but let's be frank, this is not our war. The United States is not in a war. Ukraine is in a war, and we've been supporting Ukraine. We happen to be in the role of the only country in the world, with the only leader in the world, that can actually bring Putin to a table to even discuss these things. Now, the president has traveled, all the way to Alaska, all the way back, has dedicated months and months of work, him, our entire team on this matter, because we want to see an end to the war. But if tomorrow the war continues, life in America will not be fundamentally altered. So I think that what we have to understand is that this has been a priority for this president because he wants to promote peace. He wants to promote the end of a war. And I think we should be happy that we have a president that's trying to promote peace and bring a war to an end.
Mr. Secretary, let's look at the state of the war. It's really captured in this chart. I want to put it up on the screen for our viewers. It shows that Russian attacks on Ukraine have nearly doubled since President Trump came into office. And in fact, in July, Russia launched more than 6,000 missiles and drones. That's the highest amount of attacks since the war began. What do you say to Ukrainians who worry that without a ceasefire in place, you are giving Putin more leverage at the negotiating table and a green light to drop more bombs?
Well, the problem with that is that we've been asking for a ceasefire for a long period of time. We think usually it's very hard to negotiate when you're in the middle of hostilities. But that said, the only way to have a ceasefire is for both sides to agree to stop firing at one another. Beyond that, and the Russians just haven't agreed to that. Beyond that, I would say that one of the complications about ceasefires is they have to be maintained, which is very difficult. I mean, every single day we keep an eye on what's happening between Pakistan and India, what's happening between Cambodia and Thailand. Ceasefires can fall apart very quickly, especially after a 3.5-year war like what we're facing now. But I don't think anyone disagrees that the ideal here, what we're aiming for, is not some permanent ceasefire. What we're aiming for here is a peace deal, so there's not a war now and there's not a war in the future.
But why not impose more sanctions on them and force them to agree to a ceasefire instead of accepting that Putin won't agree to one?
Well, first, I think that's something that a lot of people go around saying that I don't necessarily think is true. I don't think new sanctions on Russia are going to force them to accept the ceasefire. They're already under very severe sanctions. I think that it should be. You could argue that that could be a consequence of refusing to agree to a ceasefire or the end of hostilities. But there is no evidence that more sanctions, because sanctions take months and sometimes years to bite. And we may very well wind up in that place. I hope not, because that means that peace talks failed. But we have to give every opportunity for peace a chance in this particular case. And that's what we're trying to do here. And so those options remain to the president. The minute he takes those steps, all talk stop. The minute we take those steps, there is no one left in the world to go talk to the Russians and try to get them to the table to reach a peace agreement. So that moment may come. I hope not, because I hope we get a peace deal.
But so, Mr. Secretary, a lot of people have heard President Trump threaten sanctions for months, and they are wondering, are they empty threats? Why hasn't he punished Putin to date for this war since taking office?
Well, again, every single sanction that was in place on the day he took over remained. And the impact of all those sanctions remain. You know, when the Russians landed in Alaska, they were there to refuel. They had to offer to pay in cash to refuel their airplanes because they can't use our banking system. They face consequences every single day. But the bottom line is that has not altered the direction of this war. That doesn't mean those sanctions are inappropriate. It means it hasn't altered the outcome of it. And here's what we do think is important, and that is that we end this war. To end this war, you have to be able to engage with the Russians. As much as people may not like it, as distasteful as people may find it, the only way to end this war is to get the Russians to agree, as well as the Ukrainians, but the Russians to agree to a peace deal. And the minute you issue new sanctions, your ability to get them to the table, our ability to get them to the table, will be severely diminished. That moment may arrive. But when it comes, what you're basically signaling is there is no opportunity for peace at this point. So just let's put on more sanctions and allow more people to get bombed and more people to be killed. And that's what we're trying to stop.
So, Mr. Secretary, what will Russia have to give up? What concessions will Russia, the aggressor, have to make as a part of this peace agreement?
Well, that's what these negotiations are about. And as you can imagine, everybody goes into a negotiation wanting 100% of what they want. That includes Ukraine, but obviously the Russians. And the only way to reach a deal on anything, whether it's in business or in politics or in geopolitics, the only way to reach a deal is for each side to get something and each side to give something. And that's been very difficult. If it was easy, this wouldn't have been going on for 3.5 years. Understand, the longer these wars go on, the harder they are to end, unfortunately, because one side is always looking for leverage on the other, in this particular case, the Russian side as well. And so I think that's the core of what we're trying to work through here. That's why Zelensky's coming tomorrow. That's why European leaders are coming tomorrow. That's why the president called them from the airplane, spent 2 hours in the middle of the night talking to them. And that's why we've been engaged with them every step of the way, is we are trying to find what can we get to that both sides can agree on. And it's been difficult. This is a hard issue set, but we're dedicating a lot of time to it, and the president deserves credit for dedicating time to it.
And I understand that these negotiations are ongoing, but can you name one thing that President Trump is asking Russia to give up in order to get peace?
Well, I'm not going to disclose those things, because if we do, then you can imagine the negotiations could fall apart. These negotiations, look, I know everybody wants to know what's happening, and to a certain degree that's important. But what's more important is that these negotiations work. And for us to run to the press, like you see these leaks sometimes that are completely inaccurate, and in many cases, sometimes you see leaks out there that undermine the negotiations. Okay, these negotiations, in order for them to be successful, require for us to allow both sides to agree to potential concessions or discuss potential concessions without it finding its way in the public sphere and creating all kinds of internal problems for one country or the other country. So here's the bottom line. We all know what the elements of such a deal. There has to be talk about what the territories are going to look like and what the border lines are going to look like at the end of this conflict. There has to be talk about Ukraine's legitimate desire for security in the long term, to make sure they don't get invaded again. There has to be talk about how Ukraine is rebuilt, and how do you rebuild a country that's been attacked as often as it has over the last 3.5 years. These are all key elements of any agreement. We understand that. And each side is, if there's going to be a deal, each side is going to have to give up on something. That's just a fact.
Mr. Secretary, I want to show folks what Ukraine looks like right now. This is a map of Ukraine. That red section there, that's the area currently under control by Russia. It's about 20% of the entire country. There are reports that Putin is asking to keep all of this territory in a potential deal. Is that what's being discussed? Can you confirm that?
Well, I can confirm that he's given speeches in which he has said that repeatedly.
So he's asking for that now in these private conversations?
Well, look, ultimately, if the Ukrainians are not willing to give that up, and no one's pushing Ukraine to give that up, and so I don't think that's what. If there's going to be a peace deal, it's not going to look like that. But he certainly is making demands. He's certainly asking for things that the Ukrainians and others are not willing to be supportive of, and that we're not going to push them to give. And the Ukrainians are asking for things that the Russians are not going to give up on. I know this sounds, I know everybody wants to have more detail, but we're trying to have a serious negotiation here and see if we can find any middle ground between two warring parties in a very difficult war where the Russians feel, as they always do, like they have momentum on their side, and the Ukrainians have been incredibly brave in fighting back and in the defensive posture they've taken. The Ukrainians have inflicted a tremendous amount of damage on the Russians. I think last month alone, 20,000 Russian soldiers were killed in 1 month in this war. So the Ukrainians have inflicted tremendous amount of damage on the Russians as a result of this. Both sides are very dug in. This is a difficult one, but we're going to continue to work on it because the president's made it a priority to try to end the war that should have never happened.
Mr. Secretary, you were one of the few people in that room with President Putin and President Trump. You got to look him in the eyes. Do you believe that President Putin believes in Ukraine's right to exist based on what you heard and saw?
Well, look, I wasn't playing any of those games about looking people in the eye and trying to read their minds. I'm reading actions. And that's what we're looking at is actions. What will you agree to? What will you commit to? And what will you follow up on? And in order for this war to end, Russia will have to take actions. Ukraine will have to take actions. Ukraine's partners and allies will have to take actions as well to enforce that peace in the long term. That's what we're interested in. Not all, I get all the drama around this stuff, but at the end of the day, we are talking about a war in which people are being killed and maimed every single day, in which a country has been dismembered by 20%, as you've just pointed out. And it's really important to bring this war to an end. This war doesn't get better. It gets worse as time goes on. It gets worse. It actually threatens to spill over into other areas. So it needs to be stopped. That's why the president's made it a priority. And that's what we're focused on. Concrete actions by both sides, especially the Russian side, to bring this conflict to an end. And we're going to do everything we can to make it happen. Is it possible? I don't know, but we're going to try. We've tried. We've spent a lot of time on this issue. We have a lot of other issues to focus on, but the president's made this a priority, and he deserves credit for that.
Mr. Secretary, a couple more questions, and we're almost out of time. NBC News is reporting this morning that NATO-like security guarantees for Ukraine were discussed as a part of this agreement. Can you tell us what role would the United States play in such a security agreement?
Well, there'll have to be some security guarantees for Ukraine, right? I mean, it's one of their fundamental demands is that if this war were to end, they have to make sure this never happens again. They don't want to get reinvaded. They don't want to wait 3 or 4 years from now and find another, war on their hands. So there's going to have to be some security guarantees as part of it. How that's structured, how that's built, what our role will be, that'll be the kinds of things we'll have to work through. But again, that is going to be a key element of this deal. And it is something that in order for there to be a peace, the Russian side is going to have to accept that Ukraine is a sovereign country that has a right to defend itself and has a right to enter into alliances with other countries to defend itself. How that's constructed, what we call it, how it's built, what guarantees are built in there that are enforceable, that's what we'll be talking about over the next few days with our partners who are coming in from overseas tomorrow for a series of meetings and in the days to come. We had a long phone call about this yesterday with several of the national security advisors from various countries in Europe.
Mr. Secretary, I want to play something you said about President Putin. This was right after the invasion in March of 2022. Take a look.
This guy lies, habitually lies. He's never kept a deal they've ever signed, and he lies all the time. And I don't know why, but he plays us like a violin in the West, because the West wants to believe that you can cut a deal with everybody. You can't cut a deal with guys like this. He's a professional, experienced liar.
Mr. Secretary, given that, what makes you think that if you are able to reach a deal with President Putin, that he would stick to it, based on, as you just said, he's a liar?
Well, that's the point. That's why the deal has to have enforceable mechanisms in it. That's why the deal has to have things like security guarantees. That's the point I was making a few minutes ago when you were asking me about looking someone in the eye. What's important here is actions, not words, not paper, document. Those are all important. Those are elements of a deal, but they have to be enforceable. They have to be verifiable. They have to be enduring. There's no point here in signing a deal that's going to be violated in 3 or 4 months. There's no point in doing that. It actually would make things worse. So that's why this is such a difficult thing. Not only do you need a deal, you need a deal that's verifiable, that's enforceable, and that's enduring. If you don't achieve that, then I think you could have a ceasefire for a few months, a few weeks, and then the war will start again and more people will die. That's not the outcome we're interested in. That's not the outcome anyone wants. So that's why this is so difficult.
All right. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, thank you so much for joining us.
Again, I think phenomenal bits of information there. Again, Russian attacks Ukraine ahead of this meeting. So already Russia started attacking again in Ukraine. They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop until the agreement is reached. And that is like they've been saying, there's momentum on the side of Russia right now. This is all about Zelensky, I think, ultimately having to accept that there's probably going to be some property loss. Not all. Russia's going to have to give some back, it sounds like, and very strongly. Looks like Ukraine's probably going to have to give some up that they've kind of already lost anyway. So a lot is happening, and I will be playing the video for Trump. I just wanted to get through the few stories we got here. Trump even put this out. He says, I've settled 6 wars in 6 months, one of them a possible nuclear disaster, and yet I have to read and listen to the Wall Street Journal and many others who truly don't have a clue tell me everything that I am doing wrong on the Russia-Ukraine mess. That is sleepy Joe Biden's war, not mine. I'm only here to stop it, not to prosecute it any further. It never would have happened if I was president. I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't need the advice of people who have been working on all of these conflicts for years and were never able to do a thing to stop them. They are stupid people with no common sense, intelligence, or understanding, and they only make the current Russia-Ukraine disaster more difficult to fix. Despite all of my lightweight and very jealous critics, I'll get it done. I always do. President Donald J. Trump. He's right. And it's that attitude, by the way, that makes him brilliant. Anybody that's ever accomplished anything in their life, again, it's manifesting similar, but it's just the attitude of no matter what, I'll get it done. No matter what. Doesn't matter what adversity shows itself, you know there's another way. You know if a window or a door closes, then a window just opened or whatever, right? If a barricade goes in front of you, there's either a way out, around it, over it, under it, always. So you just never accept what you're given if you're shooting for a specific outcome. You just don't believe in fail. Fail's not an option. So it's beautiful that we've got him fighting for us. Let's see a couple of these others, and then we'll do the press conference today. Yeah, this was a good article, but not Trump covers most of it in over the 20 minutes we got. Zelensky rejects Trump's push for peace. He's claiming that a ceasefire is needed. Again, they're really stuck on this ceasefire thing. Ceasefire is not going to be allowed to happen. It's not going to happen. And Rubio's made the case. They've made the case perfectly without actually saying the reason specifically. And I think Trump maybe does, kind of. But the reason is one side will resupply, stock up on weapons, and then attack again. And Russia's like, nah, we've really worn you down. Again, Russia's paid a huge price. They're losing people like crazy. But they are doing some extensive damage as well to the Ukraine. Ukraine does not have a lot of stuff to protect itself right now. It certainly doesn't have much of an air force. Certainly doesn't have much of a air defense. It's definitely having problems. So, again, a lot happening. And then I think, this last story. Zelensky's main argument against peace is a lie. Another long article, but they're so right. So back in December of 2022, they were talking about, Zelensky was talking with his ambassadors, and he says, all the rights guaranteed by the Constitution are on pause. And, of course, there was some context there. He was joking about how diplomats don't get holidays. But the phrase stuck because it turned out to be more than a joke. It became official policy. Since then, Ukraine's democratic institutions have just been paused. They've been systematically dismantled under the banner of wartime necessity. National elections? Canceled indefinitely. Not just presidential or parliamentary, even local races were suspended, eliminating the public's ability to hold any level of government accountable. Zelensky's current term, once set to expire, has been extended without a vote and without a clear end date. Opposition media? Silenced or outlawed. Dozens of TV channels and online outlets critical of the government were shut down or merged into a state-approved broadcasting platform. Independent journalism in Ukraine now walks a legal tightrope with one foot over prison. Religious freedom? Eroded beyond recognition. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church, seen as too closely linked to Moscow, has been harassed, evicted from centuries-old monasteries, and branded a security threat. Worshippers face criminal charges for sermons, symbols, or even prayers deemed unpatriotic. Military conscription? Brutal and indiscriminate. Young men are pulled off of the streets by recruiters, sometimes beaten or coerced into enlisting. Videos of forced mobilization circulate regularly and are met with silence or spin from the authorities. Political dissent? Treated as treason. Opposition politicians have been arrested, exiled, or sanctioned without trial. Entire parties have been banned. Ukraine's Security Council now acts as judge and jury, blacklisting citizens, freezing assets, and deciding guilt without a courtroom. Rights don't just get paused. They were overwritten. This is what's happening in the country we're defending. This whole thing's a mess, obviously, and it's a money grab, too. So needless to say, here's Trump in this press conference. Peter Doocy asked the first question. I missed the very, very, very beginning of it, but whatever. Close enough to getting it all, and I think it's totally worth it. Check it out.
Russia must end this war, which it itself started. President Trump, you say President Zelensky of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to. Which is it?
No, I think that's true. I think we're going to have a meeting. I think if everything works out well today, we'll have a trilat. And I think there will be a reasonable chance of ending the war when we do that.
And is this the end of the road for American support for Ukraine? Is today's meeting deal or no deal?
I can never say that. It's never the end of the road. People are being killed, and we want to stop that. So I would not say it's the end of the road. No, I think we have a good chance of doing it. It's been almost 4 years now that a lot of people were killed last week. A lot of people last week. I mean, millions of people killed, but a lot of people last week for whatever reason. A big number, a lot of soldiers, on both sides. And I know the president, I know myself, and I believe Vladimir Putin wants to see it ended.
And as you met with Putin on Friday, today you've got President Zelensky here. As you listen to Russia and Ukraine, which side has the better cards?
Well, I don't want to say that. I'm just here to be. Look, this isn't my war. This is Joe Biden's war. He's the one that had a lot to do with this happening, and we want to get it ended. And we want it to end good for everybody. We want it to end good. The people of Ukraine have suffered incredibly.
And to that point, President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, we live under each day attacks. That today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners. And we will do our best for this. So, and I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, of personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war. And we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about trilateral. I think this is very good. Thank you.
Mr. President,
yes. If the peace deal will be achieved, are you going to be willing to send American peacekeepers to Ukraine?
Well, we're going to work with Ukraine. We're going to work with everybody, and we're going to make sure that if there's peace, the peace is going to stay long-term. This is very long-term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace and then we end up in this mess again. We're going to make sure that everything's good. We'll work with Russia. We're going to work with Ukraine, and we're going to make sure it works. And I think if we can get to peace, it's going to work. I have no doubt about it.
Your team has talked about security guarantees. Could that involve U.S. troops? Would you rule that out in the future?
We'll let you know that maybe later today. We're meeting with 7 great leaders of great countries also, and we'll be talking about that. They'll all be involved, but there'll be a lot of help. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
Mr. President, Vladimir Putin mentioned that the war will not end without addressing the root causes of this war. Have you had an understanding what are the root causes of this war?
Well, look, the war is going to end. When it ends, I can't tell you, but the war is going to end, and this gentleman wants it to end, and Vladimir Putin wants it to end. I think the whole world is tired of it, and we're going to get it ended. It was, I've done 6 wars. I've ended 6 wars, and I thought this maybe would be the easiest one, and it's not the easiest one. It's a tough one. A lot of reasons for it, and they'll be talking about it for a long time. But they'll be talking about the others. Look, India, Pakistan. We're talking about the big places. When you look at, you just take a look at some of these wars. You go to Africa and take a look at that. Rwanda and the Congo, Republic of the Congo. That's been going on for 31 years. And so we've done a total of 6, and we really have 6, not including the fact that we obliterated, and it turned out to be a total obliteration, the nuclear as you said, the future nuclear capability of Iran. And this one, I think we're going to get solved also. I feel confident we're going to get it solved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can you tell us about your conversations with European leaders and what they need to see to support an end to the war?
Yeah, well, we're going to be meeting with a great representative group and 7 very powerful, very big countries, great people, all friends of mine and friends of yours. And we're going to have some suggestions made. They want to see peace. They would like to see peace.
President, you said last
in
night
the red, in the red.
President Trump, do you think it's fair to for Ukraine and for Russia to achieve a lasting and durable peace if Ukraine cedes its territories that Russia hasn't yet conquered? Do you think it's a fair peace for Ukraine?
We're going to have a lasting peace. Just to answer the first part of your question, we're going to have a lasting peace. I hope it's going to be immediately. I hope it doesn't have to go on. And I think people of the whole world is going to be very happy when that's announced.
Mr. President, you posted on social media, Mr. President, a very touching letter from the First Lady. And the letter was hand-delivered to President Putin. And it calls for an end to the war, essentially, because of the children and the children's future. Why did the First Lady feel that letter was necessary? Was it because she believes that Mr. Putin is the aggressor in the war? Is a similar letter being hand-delivered to President Zelensky?
So the First Lady felt very strongly. She's watched the same thing that you watch and that I watch. I see things that you don't get to see, and it's horrible. But when she's got a great love of children, she has a wonderful son that she loves, probably more than anybody, including me. I hate to say it, but she loves her son. She loves children, and she hates to see something like this happening. And that goes for other wars too. I mean, she sees the heartbreak, the parents, the funerals that you see on television. Always funerals. We want to see something other than funerals. No, she felt. It was a beautiful letter. It was very well received by him. And she did ask me to say, you know, she would love to see this end. She would love to see it end. And she says it very openly, very proudly, and with great sorrow because so many people have been killed.
Mr. President, last week,
Brian, go ahead, Brian.
Yes, sir. I've got a question for each of you.
Yes.
First of all, Mr. President Zelensky, you look fabulous in that suit.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, you look good.
I said the same thing.
Yeah, looks good.
I said the one that attacked you last time. See, now he's
I remember that.
Yeah, I apologize to you. You look wonderful. No, my first question for you, President Zelensky.
In the same suit. You see, I changed. You are not.
Maybe yours is much better. Real quickly, upon peace, God willing we get peace, are you open to holding an election in your country?
Yes, of course. We are open for election, yes. We have to do safety circumstances. And a little bit, we need to work in the parliament, because during the war you can't have elections, but we can do security. We need, maybe, how to say, we need a truth, yes, everywhere, in the battlefield, in the sky, and the sea, yeah, to make possible for people to do democratic, open, legal elections.
So you say during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now, so you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, no more elections. Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake
You like this idea?
Yeah.
No.
Speaking of news, I got a question for you. This sounds insane for me even to ask this, but do you think the American media really doesn't even want a peace deal because they've seen they've been so critical of you every step of the way as you lead the charge for peace?
It's an amazing phenomenon. I said that if in the settlement you got Moscow, St. Petersburg, and thousands of miles around them, they would say, I made a bad deal. The level of hatred and animosity is incredible. Not with all. I mean, we have great people up here. We also have terrible people up there that I think are told what to say. But, you know, in solving all of these wars, they don't even write about it. You know, I saw major wars. I saw wars that have been going on for 31, 35, and 37, and a couple of quicker ones. One that was going to go into a full-blown deal very quickly. You know what the one I'm talking about. It was a big one. But they don't even write about that. No matter what I do, no matter what, and you know, this is not anything to do with you. It's probably to your advantage in a certain way. But no matter what I do, no matter what deal I make, from my standpoint, you'll come out good. Maybe President Putin will come out good. But they'll say, Trump was absolutely horrible. It's just that, and I've lived with that for a long time. I've lived with it since just before the first election. I used to get great publicity. Now I get the worst publicity anyone's ever gotten in office, but I won in a landslide, so that people understand. They're the only ones that count, ultimately. But I've also had great reporters. I've had journalists that are very good. But it's very sad when you do the right thing. As an example, they said, because of the fact that Vladimir Putin came to American soil, this was a tremendous defeat for Donald Trump. No, it was really wonderful that he did it. It was a hard thing for him to do, to be honest with you. It was the opposite of what they said, but they said it. Now, if he didn't come, they'd say that was also bad for Trump. You know, there's no way. And there's just a great dishonesty of the press, and I think that's why it's lost its credibility. You know, its credibility is at an all-time low. We have a thing going on right now in D.C. We went from the most unsafe place anywhere to a place that now people, friends are calling me up, Democrats are calling me up, and they're saying, sir, I want to thank you. My wife and I went out to dinner last night for the first time in 4 years, and Washington, D.C. is safe, and you did that in 4 days. I'll tell you, it's safe. I had another friend of mine. He has a son who's a great golfer. He's on tour, and he came in fourth yesterday in the big tournament where Scotty Scheffler made the great shot, and he said his son is going to dinner in Washington, D.C. tonight. I said, would you have allowed that to happen a year ago? He said, no way, no way. He said, what you've done is incredible. And I think the people realize it. But the press says, he's a dictator, he's trying to take over. No, all I want is security for our people. But people that haven't gone out to dinner in Washington, D.C. in 2 years are going out to dinner. And the restaurants the last 2 days were busier than they've been in a long time.
Sir, I walked around yesterday with MTG. If you can walk around with DC with MTG and not be attacked, the city is safe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last week you warned of what you called severe consequences if a 30-day ceasefire or any type of ceasefire were not agreed to by Russia. Will there be severe consequences? Does that change because of
I don't think you need a ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace, and you know, long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. Would I like the concept. You know, I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
Are you President Zelensky, are you disappointed that there's no ceasefire? The decision to offer Ukraine Article 5 like security guarantees, but stop short of pushing for their full membership?
Yeah, well, we haven't done anything on that yet. If you look back and you go back long before President Putin, it was always a statement that they would never allow Ukraine into NATO. So that was a statement that was made, but we haven't discussed any of that yet. We're going to be discussing it today. But we will give them very good protection, very good security. That's part of it. And the people that are waiting for us, they are I think they're very like-minded. They want to help out also.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Trump.
Are you disappointed there's no
The United
ceasefire, Mr.
States,
President?
the United States has already given hundreds of billions of dollars to this war effort in Ukraine.
Biden.
At best, it is a stalemate, and the killing continues. So, President Trump, how much more is the United States willing to give Ukraine? And President Zelensky, how much more do you want?
Well, I'll start off just by saying we're not giving anything now. We're selling weapons. This is something before, I guess the number is well over $300 billion. That was under Joe Biden, a corrupt politician, not a smart man, never was. By the way, go back 40 years. He was not a smart man 40 years ago either. But now he's in particular bad. This was done by a corrupt administration that shouldn't have been in, and frankly, if the right results of the election were given, if I were president, this war would have never taken place, and he would have been very happy because he would have liked to have seen. I mean, they went through hell. He went through hell. This war would have never happened, and the people that were killed, a couple of million people, a lot of people with soldiers and everything else, and the people that have been displaced and forced into other areas and other countries because of what's happened, none of that would have happened. And I'm just saying that he was a horrible president, whether it was the borders or this. He was just a horrible, corrupt president.
Mr.
President, you want to?
I can. Thank you so much. So first of all, we have possibility now to buy weapons from the United States. We are thankful for this program and this opportunity. We are thankful for Europe. They pay for this, and through NATO program, for example, Pearl, and etc. We have some programs where we can have some money to finance this, and this is a part, I think, it's not a part for the war and to defend us. It also will be a part for security guarantees, to strengthen our army, to rearm Ukrainian army. This is very, very important, and it depends how much money we need to rearm. For example, the question of air defense, we spoke about it with President Trump, and I'm happy that we have now bilateral decisions and we work on it with production, American production. Nobody in Europe has so many air defense like Patriots, for example. We need it very much, and this is also about defending.
I think the good news, we make the best military equipment in the world by far. You mentioned the Patriots. How good are they?
Systems.
We have systems, they're literally 100% foolproof. And it's really like shooting two bullets, two bullets hitting each other in the air in a space like this. The chance is 100%. It's 99 to 100%. So we sell the equipment to NATO. And NATO does what, I don't know what the arrangement is that you have with, but I know that they want you to have the equipment. And we're getting the best equipment in the world, but they pay us for the equipment. Under Biden, it was just crazy what was going on. I believe the number is over 300. I think it could be $350 billion worth of equipment and money and everything else. And we've made more progress in settling this war in the last 2 months than they made in 4 years. This should have been settled a long time ago, but it should have never happened. Yeah, please.
Real quickly, you pushed out on social media.
All right, Brian, go first.
You pushed out on social media about doing away with mail-in ballots and potentially electronic voting machines. Can you expand on that and how important
Well, that's a very off-topic, just really quickly. Mail-in ballots are corrupt. Mail-in ballots, you can never have a real democracy with mail-in ballots. And we, as a Republican Party, are going to do everything possible that we get rid of mail-in ballots. We're going to start with an executive order that's being written right now by the best lawyers in the country to end mail-in ballots because they're corrupt. And you know that we're the only country in the world, I believe, I may be wrong, but just about the only country in the world that uses them because of what's happened. Massive fraud all over the place. The other thing we want change are the machines. For all of the money they spend, it's approximately 10 times more expensive than paper ballots. And paper ballots are very sophisticated with the watermark paper and everything else. We would get secure elections. We'd get much faster results. The machines, I mean, they say we're going to have the results in 2 weeks. With paper ballots, you have the results that night. Most people, but most people, many countries use paper ballots. It's the most secure form. So between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in. And it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it, because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected. Because with men and women's sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things, and now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad, I hate to take your time with this, but I'm glad you asked me that question. We're going to stop mail-in ballots because it's corrupt. You know, when you go to a voting booth and you do it the right way and you go to a state that runs it properly, you go in, they even ask me, they asked me for my license plate, for identity. I said, I don't know if I have it. They said, sir, you have to have it. I was very impressed, actually. But it's very hard to cheat with mail-in voting. As you know what happens in California, it's so corrupt, where some people get 5, 6, 7 ballots delivered to them. Now, we got to stop mail-in voting, and the Republicans have to lead the charge. The Democrats want it because they have horrible policy. If you have mail-in voting, you're not going to have many Democrats get elected. That's bigger than anything having to do with redistricting, believe me. And the Republicans have to get smart. We're not going to have a country. I said for a long time at rallies, you need borders and you need free and fair elections. Those two things, otherwise you don't have. We have strong borders now. In 90 days, Mr. President, we didn't have 0 in 3 months. Not one person came in illegally into our country. In fact, even I find that hard to believe, but it's run by a little bit of a liberal group that put out the numbers, so I guess it's, but 0, 0, and 0. You go back a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 millions of people poured into our country. It was terrible. Thank you very much.
President Zelensky, what security guarantees do you need from President Trump to be able to make a deal? Is it American troops, intelligence, equipment? What is it?
Everything. Really, it includes two parts. First, strong Ukrainian army. That's what I began to discuss with your colleagues. And it's a lot about weapon and then people and training missions and intelligence. And second, we will discuss with our partners. It depends on the big countries, on the United States, on a lot of our friends.
And Mr. President, are you going to commit American troops to that NATO-like protection in order to get President Zelensky to a deal today?
Well, I don't know if you define it that way, but NATO-like, I mean, we're going to give, we have people waiting in another room right now. They're all here from Europe, biggest people in Europe, and they want to give protection. They feel very strongly about it, and we'll help them out with that. I think it's very important. I think it's very important to get the deal done.
You've been involved with the peacekeeping in Ukraine since your first day in the administration. What would you say to the Ukrainian people right now who are suffering under the Russian attacks and hoping that the American people will stand with them?
Well, I know Ukrainian people. I've known many over the years. They're great people. They're smart. They're energetic. They love their country. I mean, they love their country, and we want to get this war ended. That's all I can do. I love the Ukrainian people, but I love all people. I love the Russian people. I love them all. I want to get the war stopped. Very important.
Mr. President, was there any aspect of your discussion with Vladimir Putin that left you disappointed?
Look, we just spoke to, I was just telling the president, I just spoke to President Putin indirectly, and we're going to have a phone call right after these meetings today. And we may or may not have a trilat. If we don't have a trilat, then the fighting continues. And if we do, we have a good chance. I think if we have a trilat, there's a good chance of maybe ending it. But he's expecting my call when we're finished with this meeting. Thank you very much, everybody.
Which was basically right then. So yeah, it is a big deal that's going on over there. I don't know if we get it all the way across the finish line or not. We'll see. Israel bombs a power plant near the Yemeni capital after a Houthi ballistic missile launch. So more attacking there. That was from the Navy. I guess they did that. That's at least how they did the attack. A Danish prime minister calls Netanyahu a problem and threatens sanctions on Israel. It's a very interesting choice. Again, one of the countries in Denmark is part of NATO, I believe. Having them do this kind of stuff puts Trump in a weird position. But again, like we've all said, Israel's saved for last, right? So be interesting. They did expel the Australian Palestinian Authority diplomats. They were in response to some banning of visits of politicians there. What I don't know, some weird thing going on. The Israeli government announced Monday that they were expelling Australia's diplomatic representatives to the Palestinian Authority who live in Israel. So not any longer, I guess. They, in response, I guess, to Australia's ban on a visit by an Israeli politician. Some stupid stuff going on. That's all I can say. Judge puts InfoWars up for sale again as leftists clamor for Alex Jones' takedown. Onion doesn't have enough cash. There's other people that are going to come in higher, and the judges aren't going to let Onion have it. I'm pretty sure anyways. We'll see how this plays out. I'm sure this probably bugs some of you guys more than others maybe. Final story, Wi-Fi technology that can track you through walls. Yeah, it's happening now. One thing they do suggest, I'd play it, but it's not that good. One thing that they do suggest is your phone, when you're carrying that with you through the house with your Wi-Fi on, or when you're carrying it through any location with the Wi-Fi on, that plays a large key in that because your phone makes many, many, many pulses per minute. If it's just asleep, he said possibly 1 pulse per 30 seconds, but generally there's a pulse every 3 seconds, 2 seconds, trying to find and make sure there's a connection to the tower. So just constantly banging that thing. So this is what they use to be able to identify you. That signal travels through walls. Wi-Fi can travel through walls. It's an ability to be able to essentially track you. And there's some other interesting things that have happened. So a lot of the stuff we do to ourselves, and some of it we just don't know about. And so ignorance sometimes is bliss, if you will. All said, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the war. Obviously, the deep state does not want it to stop, but it needs to, and it's going to at some point anyways. Trump's playing a hard game, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that we don't know that have maybe will get talked about, hopefully, after the deal is made. Some of it probably can never be talked about because it might, talk about something that is a sensitive topic for any particular state or country, including ourselves. So who knows? But we'll be hearing more about it. I don't know if we get the trilat today. I hadn't seen anything thus far, but again, I've been in the middle of the show. You never know what could happen. But again, a lot going on. They're supposed to be meeting with European leaders. I'm going to probably try to find that and see what's going on with all that. But I love you guys. We'll talk soon. And I already got music pulled, by the way, for this weekend. It's we'll tell the story later, but it's some pretty fun, groovy stuff. Like, yeah, it was it worried me at first, but I actually pulled together some pretty good music. So we'll plug that a little further into the week. All said, where we go one, we go all. It's on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle.